In the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Stellar Coalition had long categorized humans as a relatively peaceful species, ranking them a mere 4 out of 20 on the hostility scale. Their interactions with the Human Alliance had seemed to support this conclusion. Humans had not engaged in wars among themselves for centuries, and had formed a unified world government before achieving faster-than-light travel. They responded to first contact with eagerness rather than hostility, and had resolved every dispute through diplomacy and compromise since joining the Union. For instance, a few years prior, the expansionist Varkari had claimed a human mining colony as their territory. The Union braced for a minor conflict, expecting the humans to defend their outpost. Instead, the humans simply agreed to hand over the planet for a small, yearly fee, turning the Varkari into prominent trading partners. Another incident involved the paranoid Moran, who arrested human ambassadors on spying charges. The humans did not retaliate or raid the facility. They opened back-channel negotiations and arranged a prisoner exchange, swapping a few smugglers for their people. Thoughts on humans varied among Union members. Some admired their pacifism and even tempered statesmanship, while others saw it as weakness. I was in the latter camp, believing that their avoidance of war stemmed from a lack of strength or wit. However, the arrival of the swarm changed everything. The swarm, as we called them, were a mysterious species with a singular mission: to drain stars of their energy. They would seize one system by force, deplete its resources, and then proceed to the next. Our fleet, the finest the Union had to offer, suffered heavy losses when we clashed with their destroyers. Our weapons barely scratched their ships, and we were forced to retreat to avoid annihilation. I sent out a distress signal, pleading for reinforcements, but silence was the only response. Not a single Union power volunteered to help. Just as I thought we were on our own, human ships jumped into our position. Ironically, the only ones who came to our aid were the Galactic pushovers. There were only 5 of them, a pathetic showing, but more than the 0 ships sent by other Union powers. Union vessel, this is Commander Anderson Queen of the Human Alliance. We are here to assist in any way possible, the human commander said, his blonde hair contrasting sharply with the sterile environment of the bridge. I bowed my head. Thank you for coming, Commander Queen. I am Colonel Zurich. Please join our formation and help cover our retreat. Commander Queen looked confused. Our intentions are to engage and terminate the enemy. With 5 ships? Zurich said. I scoffed. The swarm number in the thousands, and they crushed our fleet of equal magnitude. I wouldn't expect a peaceful species like yours to understand warfare, but it's in your interest to follow our lead. Queen smiled, a predatory glint in his eyes. You think humans are a peaceful species? The Union has misjudged us. We avoid war because we know what we are capable of, and nobody has deserved that quite yet. I was taken aback. This was a clear case of delusion, stemming from a lack of experience with galactic conflict. The swarm would ridicule the Earthlings and penalize them for their arrogance. However, I would not stop Commander Queen from sending his men into a slaughter. If you insist on fighting, I certainly won't stand in your way, but know that you're on your own. We're getting out of here, I said. What is your plan? I asked, genuinely curious. We brought a nanotech weapon we developed. We've never actually used one before, since in about 5% of simulations they don't stop with localized entities and consume all matter in the universe. But we programmed them to self-destruct after a few seconds, which will probably work, Commander Queen said casually. My eyes widened in alarm. Wait, hold up. You just said it could destroy everything. Before I could utter another word to halt them, the Terran flagship launched a missile. At first, I thought they had missed their mark. The projectile sailed through the swarm fleet, not connecting with a single ship, and then it detonated at the rear of the formation. All hell broke loose. Space itself seemed to shudder as an explosion tore through anything in its vicinity. The force was so powerful that our sensors could only provide an error message. At least a third of the swarm fleet was instantly disintegrated, turned to metal soup by an improbable amount of energy and heat. Although many of the enemy vessels sustained heavy damage, they managed to survive the initial blast. An invisible force seemed to be slowly dissecting each of them. I watched in disbelief as the mighty cruisers slowly disintegrated. The swarm hardly knew what hit them. By the time they thought to return fire, there was nothing left to return fire with. Their arsenal evaporated in a matter of seconds, and undoubtedly their personnel suffered the same fate. Where there had once been an unstoppable army, now only stood space. The humans had unleashed a wave of destruction that was unrivaled by anything I had ever seen in my military career. They had changed the course of the battle with a single missile. The idea that they might one day use their monstrous weapons against the Union filled me with horror. There was no way to defend oneself against such diabolical creations. The hostility scale needed an update. A species capable of creating such weapons was truly formidable. Glancing around at my crew, I saw stunned and aghast reactions that mirrored my own. If they ever became hostile, the humans represented a threat of the highest level. They have the potential to easily wipe out the entire galaxy. Now that's taken care of. You should have just invited us to the party to start with, Commander Queen grinned. Tell you what, Colonel, next time we meet, you owe us a beer. I frowned, knowing that the humans could ask for much more than a drink if they wanted to. Yeah, I think we can do that, I replied, terminating the call and watching as the human ships warped back into hyperspace. I was still trying to wrap my mind around the whole thing and wondered how I was going to put this into words for the battle debrief. The Union had no idea who the humans truly were, but I was going to make sure they did. As I played the events of the day over in my mind, it clicked. I finally understood why such a powerful species would not show its hand. The humans avoided war because it would be too easy for them to win. When the messenger arrived, the Union assembly was prepared for the worst. The Stellar Coalition dispatched the fastest ship ahead of the fleet to give the ambassadors a first-hand account of the battle. The terrified look on the young Talos lieutenant's face as he entered the assembly chamber seemed to confirm everyone's fears. I remembered the transmission we had received just a few hours ago, detailing the grim predicament of those who had confronted the swarm. The number of confirmed losses had already been hefty, and without any Union members sending in backup, we could be looking at as much as a 90% casualty rate. As speaker, I had tried to persuade the mid-tier hostility species to offer assistance, but they all flatly refused. If I had had the power to force them to go, I would have. We all knew about the trail of destruction the swarm left in their wake, but we had no choice but to stop them. They would push us to the brink of extinction if we allowed them to plow through our galaxy. There were a few odd points to the messenger's behavior, however. As he walked up to the podium, he locked eyes with human ambassador Samantha Moran and swallowed nervously. I noticed that his hands were shaking. The Talos were a proud, honor-driven race who had seen the horrors of war time and time again. Never before had I seen one return home looking like they'd seen a ghost. And why would his fixation be on the peaceful humans of all races? Oh, hello, counselors. I'm Zurich Vash. The lieutenant began, his voice shaking. The swarm has been defeated. Not a single one of their ships survived. Surprised murmurs spread through the assemblage. I was puzzled as well. The earlier correspondents had painted a hopeless picture for our men. If there had really been such a drastic turn of events, we needed to know how. We could impart the fleet's tactics to other commanders for future encounters. A quick glance across the room revealed most of the representatives in a state of confusion, but Ambassador Moran was smirking, a predatory glint in her eyes. There was something about her expression that unsettled me deep in my subconscious. I leapt to my hooves, keen on restoring order. Silence. How is this possible? Please explain. Well, Madam Speaker, it was the humans. They only sent a few ships to our aid, but they built something awful. The lieutenant's voice had dropped to hardly more than a whisper. It was like they harnessed a supernova. Never in my life have I seen such destruction. Utter chaos erupted as shocked exclamations rose to a crescendo, and all heads turned toward Ambassador Moran. I wasn't sure I believed this account of the battle. Do the humans possess a terrible weapon capable of destroying the swarm? It was common knowledge that they avoided war at all costs. Klissar Ambassador Thrix laughed and raised a talon to speak. Respectfully, the humans are not a fighting species. Despite their savviness, cunning, and greed, if they possessed weapons capable of eliminating the swarm, they would surpass mere talkers and diplomats. They'd rule the galaxy by now. The Fenris were in the upper echelons of the hostile species, but also were humanity's primary trading partner. The Human Alliance had won them over with their willingness to sell anything for a price. And despite differing philosophies on violence, the two powers had become close allies. "You're wrong. I saw it with my own eyes," Tharok replied, his voice steady and sure. "The truth of humanity is that they are killers. They are dangerous." I turned my gaze to Ambassador Moran. "We should let the Solarian representative answer. What do you have to say? Is this true, Ambassador Moran?" She sighed wearily. "Yes, it's true. Earth possesses numerous backup weapons. We are excellent at warfare, but we try to find a different way. Why did you present us with a false image of your species?" I demanded. "You speak of peace, and yet you've been hiding away the strongest weapons in the galaxy." "We never wish to use them," she said. "Your hostility scale. The most hostile species are often territorial and seek to conquer. If the Union had looked into our history, you would have noticed that we were once like that. We lost millions of lives in wars between our factions, and we grew tired of all that bloodshed. Humanity has tried to be better. Our destructive, impulsive nature is still there. We just buried it deep. You see, we are the only hostile species to have a strong sense of empathy as well. We grapple with that duality constantly. We control ourselves with rules, and for the most part, we choose good. But we know the depths of depravity that exist. We knew that one day someone truly evil would come along, and we would have to be worse." I digested her words, my mind still reeling. A war with one's own species that had millions of casualties? Even the most devastating battles in Talos's early history resulted in approximately 120,000 casualties, placing them at a 17th rank on the hostility scale. The bloodiest war we had previously known of didn't hold a candle to the humans' past. A species with that much of a propensity for violence should have killed itself off. There was no way they should be able to form a functioning society, let alone think that they were acting as the galactic peacemakers. I found it difficult to reconcile my experiences with the civilized, smooth-tongued human diplomats against the vile history described by Ambassador Moran. No matter how much the humans claimed to be able to control their aggression, we could not trust them. A species with such a drive to violence could easily stab you in the back in a moment of anger and think nothing of it. Honestly, if I wasn't afraid of retaliation, I would have raised a motion to oust the Human Alliance from the Union then and there. Even though it might be risky, having them on our side was likely preferable to them using their artillery against us. However, we would need to monitor them much more closely. I forced a neutral expression. "You did save us from an enemy we could not beat on our own. We owe you a tremendous debt. It will take some time for the Union to fully consider what you have just told us, but we thank you for ending the war." Ambassador Moran's eyes hardened. "The war is not over, Speaker. We defeated one fleet, but the swarm will send more. If we fail to eliminate them, they will only return stronger. Humanity does not expect your blessing, but we do ask for your forgiveness for what we are about to do." "What are you about to do?" I asked cautiously. "We're going to strike their home world with singularity warheads. No survivors. It is a permanent solution. It may not be pretty, but we don't see any other options to put an end to the terror they subject the rest of the region to," she replied. Even the most aggressive species looked appalled at the suggestion. I noticed the ambassadors in close proximity to the human edging away, as though they were afraid she might bite. I shook my head fervently. "That is genocide. The Union cannot accept the eradication of an entire species. Please let us try to negotiate a truce. We must exhaust peaceful avenues before even considering an attack like this. You can't reason with someone who only wants to destroy, kill, or be killed." Ambassador Moran rose from her seat, collecting her belongings. "How many innocent species have already perished by their hands? As far as we're concerned, it's better them than us. The Terran representative exited the building, waving farewell to Ambassador Thrix as she departed. I could not fathom how any sentient could be so calm and detached at the prospect of glassing a planet, even one of a parasitic race like the Swarm. I wondered if we should at least make some sort of attempt to stand in the humans' way. It was unlikely we could stop them, but at least we could say we tried. Life was simpler when we believed they were peaceful. A part of me wished that that lie could have lasted for just a bit longer. I missed our pacifist friends already. But the galaxy was cruel, and humans had just shown us they were not to be underestimated. Their weapons were unlike anything we had ever seen, and their willingness to use them was a stark reminder that peace was not always the answer. Sometimes you had to fight fire with fire, and the humans had just proven that they were more than capable of doing so. As I left the assembly chamber, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me. The humans were a wild card, a variable that we had not accounted for, and their actions today had shown that they were not to be trifled with. We would have to tread carefully around them, for they held the power of destruction in their hands, and they were not afraid to use it. The days that followed were a flurry of activity as the Union tried to process the information that the humans had shared. Whispers of their true nature spread like wildfire, and the once peaceful image of the Terrans was shattered, replaced by one of fear and respect. They were a species to be reckoned with, and we would do well to remember that. In the solitude of my quarters, I delved into the chronicles of human history, striving to comprehend the species that had so effortlessly transformed the course of battle. Their past was a bloody one, filled with wars and strife, but also with moments of greatness and innovation. They were a complex people, driven by both empathy and a thirst for violence, and I found myself both fearing and admiring them. As the Union debated the merits of the humans' plan to eliminate the Swarm, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in their decisiveness. They did not shy away from the difficult choices, and their willingness to do what was necessary to protect their people was something to be respected, even if it meant the end of an entire species. In the end, the Union agreed to support the humans in their mission, seeing no other viable solution to the Swarm threat. And so, with a heavy heart, I watched as the human fleet set course for the Swarm homeworld, their ships gleaming like knives in the starlight. The humans had shown us their true colors, and the galaxy would never be the same. They were a force to be reckoned with, and we would do well to remember that. For in the vast expanse of space, there were few things more dangerous than a species that knew its own power and was not afraid to use it.